Zipper rolls out to the right, pitches off to Taylor, and Taylor's to the 20, down to the 15, down to the 10, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Touchdown, Billy Taylor! Billy Taylor scored a touchdown from 21 yards out. The crowd goes berserk. It was November 22nd, 1969. That they came to Barry, Michigan, all dressed in maize and blue. The words were said, the prayers were read, and everybody cried. But when they closed the coffin, there was someone else inside. Oh, they came to Barry, Michigan, but Michigan wasn't dead. And when the game was over, it was someone else instead. 11 Michigan Wolverines put on the gloves of gray, and as the organ played the victors, they laid Woody Hayes away. Under center is Wangler at the 45. He goes back. He's looking for a receiver. He throws downfield to Carter. Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Welcome to the Michigan Man Podcast on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew, for Wolverine fans from coast to coast. Go Blue, and welcome to our Michigan Game Day segment for B10 Championship Week. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. With us in just a few minutes to share his thoughts on the Ohio State win and look ahead to Iowa will be John Borton from the Wolverine Magazine. We'll also hear a few thoughts from Iowa's head man, Kirk Ferentz. First, my view from Section 17 to get us going. We'll keep it short today because I'm trying to get out of town and head to Indy with many of you. It's going to be a quick week, though. The team has to come down from the high of winning one of the biggest games in school history and get ready for an Iowa team that is a heavy underdog this Saturday night. I just don't see us not being ready. This team has kept their focus through a season of chaos and never wavered. They know what's on the line this Saturday. They know to achieve their goals, they need to be workmanlike against a pesky Iowa team, and I think they will. This is the third year in a row we've made this trip, and it never gets old, as many of you know. We've waited a lot of years for this kind of success. These are the good times, so let's enjoy it. At his presser this week, Coach Kirk Ferentz said, Iowa is used to being the underdog in games like this.
Well, I mean, it's kind of the way we are, and we have been for, as long as I've been involved in the program, even in the 80s. So, I mean, it's the way it is, and that's okay. And when you're playing real big games, chances are we are going to be, I like to say big games, like a big bowl game or a championship game like this. I think historically that's kind of been, the way Iowa is. And if you don't embrace it, you're going to probably be a loser. So, and you may be a loser anyway, or come out and losing the game, not be a loser, but lose the game. But I think you have to relish the opportunity, the challenge, and understand how significant the challenge is going to be, and appreciate that and respect it. And the great thing about sports too is you just never know what's going to happen. That's why all the prognosticasts they get a little frustrated because you just can't predict even a regular season like what's going to happen 100% because people are people and there's a lot of things that can happen.
Coach Ferentz was asked what it would take for Iowa to win this game.
We'd have to do everything right and probably force a couple mistakes. But you can't worry about all those things. You just got to worry about what you can do and your performance. So that's what the week's for right now, is us trying to know our opponent really well. And I'm not too worried about us having the respect it takes to win a game. In this game, I'm not worried about that one, but just knowing the opponent, knowing what we have to do, and then doing it with real precision. A real high level of precision. I think that's one thing too when you get in a game like this with an opponent like this. It's got to be right on the. Raymond Berry said you don't aim for the bullseye, it's the center of the bullseye, and it's really appropriate in a game like this because if you're off just a little bit, chances are it's not going to be good for you. So a little bit of a heightened awareness, I guess, and not so much appreciation, but awareness and just detail in what you're doing. Steps, footwork, eye discipline, all the things you have to do to be a good football player.
My guest today says he thinks Saturday night will be a glorious celebration for Michigan football. He agrees we can't overlook this Iowa team, but this is a mentally tough and prepared Michigan team. Up next is John Borton from the Wolverine Magazine, so stay with us. Here with us today on our game day segment as we get ready for a big weekend in Indy is senior editor John Borton from the Wolverine Magazine. Great to have you back with us, John.
Well, it's great to be with you, sir, and talking for the third straight year about Michigan in the championship game of the Big Ten. You just look at everything that they've been through this year, and, they've gone by Michigan versus everybody, and it seems to be more and more true as they go along, but they just keep proving their point. And the real point here is this group of players has earned this through no extraneous exterior means, but by their talent and their hard work and ability. And that's really been proven down the stretch in this Big Ten season.
Yes, it has. And we, of course, know what's coming up on Saturday. But I thought before we talk about that, let's spend a few minutes on that glorious win on Saturday, John. The last two games sort of got out of hand for the Buckeyes. This one really did, as they rarely do in big games, lived up to the hype, didn't it?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I mean, this was a classic Michigan-Ohio State game. I thought it was going to be a one-score game and said that beforehand. I just had a feeling it was going to be closer this year, in part because Ohio State has learned its lesson in the last couple of years and geared its team defensively to be better and to not give up the big play. And it hasn't all year. And you didn't see the 75, 85-yard runs in this one either, although Michigan cracked that defense a couple times along the way. But, boy, nothing compared to before. You see Michigan guys opening the door to start the scoring with Will Johnson's interception. And Will Johnson had told me earlier that, he felt slighted by Ohio State in recruiting, and this game was very personal to him. And then you end the thing with you've got Rod Moore, who is an Ohio guy himself, and got overlooked by the Buckeyes, making the interception that seals it. And in between, you had a whole lot of gutsy play. You even in the lowest moment of that game, when Zach Zinter goes down with just a horrific lower leg injury, and that team gathers on the field, they responded to that in a way that nothing takes away that injury for sure, and we wish him all the best. Thankful for a successful surgery, but the way that team responded, Blake Corum scoring on the very next play, and Michigan just moving forward in the fashion that they did, I know was heartening for Zach Zinter, who himself plans to be down there in Indianapolis this weekend.
That's amazing. I didn't know he was going to be able, after that surgery, get to the game. So that will.
Well, I don't know that it's yet to be determined, but I saw somewhere his intent and his hopes to be there. He tweeted out something about being in Indy this weekend.
Well, that would be great. I hope that happens. We'll have to keep an eye on the sidelines Saturday night. Well, Monday, at Jim's presser, John, he named Sharon Moore a Michigan legend. And no doubt about it, he is now, with all the stress on his shoulders, everything he had on his plate Saturday, he was magnificent, wasn't he?
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I mean, talk about pressure and talk about a situation where you are truly being judged by the bottom line. That's Michigan, Ohio State, and Michigan being at home. And Michigan, what the narrative would be, a couple of them. If Michigan drops that game, well, if they'd have had Jim Harbaugh on the sideline, they win that game. How's that going to feel for the guy that stepped into his shoes? And the other thing is, you see what happened there? They're not sign stealing. They're not doing this. They don't know this and they don't know that. And then, so none of the last 3 years counts. That's a lot of weight. And that was the narrative that Ohio State desperately wanted to go with. All that gets wiped out, in part because Sharon Moore was very gutsy in the way he went about things. He went for it on several occasions on fourth down, twice in one series. He allowed these guys to use their talents and really had to make some tough adjustments. Obviously, we talked about losing Zach Zinter. Brilliant adjustment there in moving Carson Barnhart inside and putting Trente Jones out at that tackle for the key series in the game. It was just one of those efforts where Sherrone Moore has already been someone identified by Jim Harbaugh as a future head coach, whether that be here or elsewhere. But I think Sherrone Moore on Saturday put the stamp of certification on it. And as some like to point out, drew himself into a tie with most wins in the series, or the same number of wins as one Ryan Day. And Ryan Day's had 4 cracks at it.
Well, John, for years, maybe too many, we knew that quarterback play was one of the big differences in this rivalry. And it was again on Saturday. JJ made some amazing throws. A couple, when I was watching, I said, oh no, don't throw it. Like the one to Roman Wilson that he just zinged through for that touchdown. And he had a couple of nice runs, was cool as a cucumber. And he proved once again he's just flat out a big-time quarterback, isn't he?
Oh, there's no question about it. I mean, the one throw that you reference, they talk about tight windows for quarterbacks. Well, that was more like a keyhole. Yeah. And JJ found the opening and slipped it through. And an interesting aspect to that, he just said yesterday that in his film study, he says, I'm looking at number 25 and the defender in that case, and he doesn't look back at the quarterback. And he said, so as soon as he locked on to Roman Wilson, I knew he wasn't going to turn his head, and I was only throwing past the width of his body. I thought that was a pretty amazing film study takeaway, and he tucks that in his mind, and that in part gave him the ability to slip that ball past the defender. It just he has all year really given up a situation where he could have had padded stats and, be the very front runner for the Heisman Trophy with gaudy numbers. But, he throws for 148 yards or whatever it was to Kyle McCord's 271. And yet he was the better quarterback, and that was very obvious. 2 interceptions by McCord to none for JJ, and he did whatever he had to do, including shaking off an injury that he'd had there at Penn State, to be able to run at the most appropriate times and keep things moving for that team. It's just a masterful performance.
It absolutely was. And one of the other beautiful things to me on Saturday, John, were the drives that Michigan put together in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter. Hard, tough runs with some big completions from JJ, especially the last drive of almost 8 minutes. That was just a beautiful thing to watch, wasn't it?
No doubt about it. And if you can give John Jansen flashbacks to 1996, you've done something right. Yeah. And that is exactly what Mr. Jansen, the 2-time captain and the 2-time All-American, was experiencing. I was at that game in 96 when Michigan was hanging on in that 13-9 win. It got to the point in that game where they just drove it down the field, and Ohio State knew what was coming and could not stop Michigan. And it was just a very similar situation where they took that time off the clock and backed the Buckeyes into a corner, even in their own house. And that's what Michigan did here. It would have been perfect for them to be able to finish it off with a touchdown in that drive, but they drained every single timeout off the board for Ohio State and put them in a really, really tough position in trying to scramble back. And then they put the pressure on McCord, and Rod Moore did the rest. So absolutely, that was a work of art where Michigan just said, you know what? Yes, we did just lose our best offensive lineman, our All-American, but we've got we're going to pull together. We are going to run this thing, and we're going to show that although Ohio State, you look at them and you look at the skill position players, and you look at a guy like Harrison, who's going to be a very high first round draft choice. They've got the skilled people. Michigan has gained the upper hand in those trenches, and that has been felt without any question over the last 3 years.
No, it absolutely has, and that's on both sides of the ball. I don't even know where to start when we talk about the Michigan defensive performance, John. It was just so good because, as you said, at the skill positions, Ohio State is just loaded up. I don't know if anyone has better skill people than Ohio State. So Michigan made them work for everything, for every yard. And as a body of work, it was very impressive, wasn't it?
Absolutely. You start with the interceptions because those were game changers. Set up the first touchdown, shut down the game when it was on the line. But even when they were getting nicked up, and you're going to get nicked up if you play Ohio State. I mean, they're just too good. Michigan reacted in a way that slowed things and kept them from hitting 30 points for the third straight year, and nobody else is doing that. Travion Henderson has really come on and is a very, very fine back. We already talked about Marvin Harrison, but Travion Henderson had a series that I believe it was the one that tied the game at 17-all, where he was getting big chunks of yardage and they were starting to run the football, and that was the uh-oh moment in that game. You started to think, okay, maybe this Ohio State team has learned its lesson and can hang with Michigan running the football. But you know what? After that, whatever Jesse Minter did on the sidelines, whatever adjustments he made, they shut that down after that. And I looked afterwards, just off of that series, I'm thinking Travion Henderson must have been approaching 100 yards, but it ended up being 60 on the ground. Michigan really, when its back was against the wall, that defense shone very brightly. And, that's something that they've got going, that they're going to be able to match or exceed Iowa's defense, and Iowa lives on defense, and yet Michigan has a much better offense come Saturday.
Well, John, you and I have both seen some big wins in our lifetime in this rivalry, but, given everything going on this season, on and off the field, Jim not being on the sidelines, I'd have to say that one ranks up there with the best ever in the series. It might not top 69. I mean, we were around for that. Hard to top that. You could make a point that it is right up there with the very best, couldn't you?
Oh, it's absolutely huge. It's right in certainly in anybody's top five, I would have to say, and maybe the most important win for Michigan. It's in some ways it's 69 like. Because you look at the drought against Ohio State before 69, and you understand that was a breakthrough for Bo Schembechler, and this series is not going to be like it has been in the 50s and 60s. There's a new sheriff in town. In this game, yes, Michigan had won the last 2 years, but what were they saying before the game? Well, even Ryan Day. Oh, we know what's gone on the last couple of years, as if to excuse everything. Oh, no, these guys, the cheaters had invalid wins these last 2 years. This was a win that certified all three. This was a win that delivered the reminder. No, it's not about Carter Stallions. It's not about illicit scouting. It's not about sign stealing. We know that Ohio State knew Michigan signs a year ago and had changed its own sign before that game. You don't hear that talked about. It was all about no. The last 2 years really don't count. So just wait and see. And boy, would the decibels on that sort of talk would have gone through the roof had Ohio State won this one. Instead, Michigan gets kind of the 3-1 win that says, no, it's not that. It's us. It's us in the trenches. It's us in taking care of the football. It's us in overcoming in-game adversity. And sorry, boys, we've got your number.
Exactly. And I think Ryan Day backed himself into a corner the week of the game last week. And, I watched his presser after the game, and he looked like a guy who needed to stay away from open windows and high places. I mean, I think Michigan is definitely in his head now, don't you?
There's no question. There's no question about it. I mean, even the talk that unproven to this point, but that you got some people that suspect that somebody tipped the NCAA off. Somebody had to get the NCAA investigators after Michigan, and there are some, and I believe some at Michigan, that believe that Coach Day might have had a hand in that. And if there's anything to that, that smacks of desperation. And that is also just one more sign that, the folks in Columbus are really grasping and really reaching to, they own this series for the better part of 2 decades. And Michigan helped in that effort by exiting the stage for a while in some decisions, personnel decisions it made. But now this is a different deal. And Jim Harbaugh says Michigan is as together as he's seen it in terms of the overall, talking about from the president of the university on down. And if he feels that way strongly enough to sign that contract extension, he might just say to everybody, we're gonna dominate this thing for another decade.
Well, I think we could talk about that win for hours and weeks, and we probably will, but there is business to take care of this Saturday in Indy. And, a lot of our fans I've been talking to since Saturday are, thinking Iowa, no challenge, you know how the West is. But you and I have been around long enough to know you don't take teams like this for granted. Both you and I have the utmost respect for Kirk Ferentz and what he's done there in 25 years. In particular this year, his defense and special teams, they are very, very good. You cannot overlook these guys, can you, John?
Well, no, you can't. All evidence in the history of East versus West in the Big Ten Championship Game notwithstanding, there's that history. It's like the West plays it out to be the piñata for the East, and yet that's not how Michigan looks at it. You just listen to those guys and hear how they talk. And this is the next challenge, and we're going to take this just as seriously as we did Ohio State, and we are going to go to work here. And that's the right way to go about it, because as you mentioned, special teams and the defense for this Iowa crew, you get a bunch with a defense like that. And if you get a couple of those turnovers early and they turn into points, I mean, this is an offense, let's face it, that needs help.
Mm-hmm.
But if they get that help, if they put Michigan in a hole early, then you've really got your hands full. Someone I respect a great deal in looking at this said the following, that Iowa is a team that invites you to make mistakes, and the important thing is to politely decline the invitation, because they will take advantage. And I mean, it's not the Iowa team that we expected. I picked, as I told you before we started this, Iowa and Michigan to be in the championship game of the Big Ten before the season ever started. But I thought it was going to be J.J. McCarthy versus Cade McNamara. I thought it was going to be Michigan's excellent tight end combo versus Eric All. Not so, because those two former Wolverines are out of the picture right now with injury. But still, this Iowa team has found a way to win game after close game, and here they are.
Yeah, and given what we know about these teams, as you said, the invitation from Iowa is going to be go ahead and make mistakes, especially early in the game. But I've got to think, if Michigan brings their A game, and I believe that we will, if we get up in this game early, it could get out of hand.
Oh, There's no question. I just think that Michigan has as good or better of a defense. I believe it's better than Iowa for all of Iowa's accomplishments this year on that side of the football. And I think Michigan has an infinitely better offense with J.J. McCarthy and with the running backs and with the receivers and the tight ends. I think they would be absolutely the envy of Iowa onlookers. You look at Deacon Hill, the quarterback for Iowa. He's filling in and he's completing 48% of his passes. So, and he's got more interceptions than touchdowns. They're going to need a lot of help from the defense. And Michigan is of that mindset that they've taken advantage in every game that they go on the road and they make some things happen early that really dishearten opponents. We saw it at Nebraska and we saw it at Minnesota and different places that the Wolverines have played this year. And I think that they're built for this situation. And this won't feel like a road game either, because I guarantee you that stadium down there in Indianapolis is going to be well represented with maize and blue.
Oh, absolutely. I thought last year it was like being in Ann Arbor with a dome. So I expect it will be again this year. Always a great atmosphere in Indy, though, John, and it's going to be a lot of fun for those who are there and those who are watching at home. If Michigan wins, I have to think everyone will be watching the post-game ceremonies, watching Jim have the championship trophy handed to him by Commissioner Petitti is going to be very interesting and must-watch TV, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is. I think it will probably be less eventful than the most, I guess, than those that would like to see something kind of blow up.
Yeah,
I can picture that big Jim Harbaugh grin and him holding the trophy up, but I think that they'll take the high road. They'll be on their best behavior, and it will just be the handoff of the trophy. We know that Tony Petitti, commissioner of the Big Ten, is not exactly on the Christmas card list for Michigan this year. He's the guy that set Jim Harbaugh aside, despite the fact that the NCAA said it had no knowledge and no proof of Jim Harbaugh having knowledge of being tied into this what they're calling a scandal, the advanced scouting and the sign stealing and all. So there's I guarantee you, Jim Harbaugh is not a happy man about having not been on that field for Penn State, at Maryland, for especially this last game. In his mind, he's all about onward. That's his word. And now it's onward. He gets a chance to hoist the Big Ten Championship trophy for the third straight season and seal Michigan's entrance into the playoff for the third straight season. And I think that he will find it a glorious moment. And not for him. He'll continually, he will direct this back to the players as much as humanly possible. I doubt if the trophy even stays in his hands for long. He'll be looking for somebody to hand it off to.
I agree. Still can't wait to see it, though. Final question.
Oh, yeah.
Final question before we let you get away then, John. With everything going on around the program, and by now we all know what that means, we don't know what the NCAA has in store for Michigan or Jim Harbaugh. It might take years for that to come to light. So enjoying this season, Saturday night, and hopefully the playoffs, is something I hope Michigan fans will do, because we are in the midst of an historic run of success. And for those of us who have been watching this for decades, I keep telling our younger listeners and fans this, enjoy this, because you know what? These are the good times, aren't they?
These are the good old days. No doubt about it. I had a son that is 30 now, but grew up in some leaner times.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he loved his Wolverines, but he did not experience a 10-year war like I did from in my early years. I didn't didn't get to see all of the dominance of the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s. And now, people that are in that position absolutely enjoy it and revel in it because it's very special that this team has done what it's done and brought itself up to the point where it is all of a sudden the class of the Big Ten, even with an Ohio State team that hasn't fallen off. Let's make that clear. When Ohio State dominated for a while, Michigan had, as I said, had left the stage for a while. Ohio State's still there. Michigan's still taking care of business. So absolutely, Michigan fans, this is your time.
Absolutely, and that's what I will tell them. Enjoy this. Here with us today as we get ready for that big game in Indy Saturday has been editor John Borton from the Wolverine Magazine. John, always great to have you with us, and we thank you for sharing so much time. I know you're going to enjoy your trip to Indy on Saturday, and we look forward to the next visit.
Well, I look forward to it too, and absolutely it is going to be one heck of a Saturday, I believe, for the Wolverines and everybody looking on.
On Quick Hits today, as we get the show ready, not much injury news to discuss. As I mentioned at the top of the show, I'm going to keep this short because I'm heading to Indy like many of you. So here we go. A third straight trip to the Big 10 Championship Game. Let's enjoy every minute of it. Whatever happens, we'll be back next week to recap the game and talk about what's next. That does it for now. Have a great Wolverine weekend, everyone. Think victory, beat Iowa. I'm your host, Mike Fitzpatrick. Until we meet again, take care, and as always, go blue. Thanks for joining us today on The Michigan Man, here on Wolverine Sports Radio, a member of the V-Sporto Network, and in partnership with SB Nation's Maize and Brew. Our listener lines are open 24/7 for your calls at 313-263-4842. That's 313-263-4842. Or email us at themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. That's themichiganmanpodcast@yahoo.com. The Michigan Man Podcast is produced at the studios of Robin Lynn Productions, Allen Park, Michigan, and is not affiliated with the University of Michigan. Go Blue.